first thing that we want to do is make sure that we are still on our altitude here of 3,000. Oh!
My airspeed is increasing. Am I pitch up or pitch down? I kind of screwed that up a little bit.
So today I'm doing a CFII ride with a friend of mine. We're going to practice his ability to teach instruments. He's already a CFI, and we're going to specifically work on how to teach a student to fly in straight and level, how to do some basic attitude instrument flying. For new instructors, this can be one of the hardest things to teach because we're fairly removed from it. It's been a little while since you had to think about how do we fly an airplane straight and level. But there are some very important tips and tricks and methods that instructors have to use to help get the point across and make sure that the student understands what's going on. So what I'm going to do is pre-flight the airplane and then pull it out. I don't want to pre-flight it in the cold because it is freezing today here in Kentucky. Good morning. How are you? All right, so I'm going to turn on the engine master. We'll wait for the glow to come off.
Okay.
And then I'll engage the starter. You ready?
Yep. You're right.
Our fumes coming up, aero pressure's coming up, starter is off, and then we'll check the circuit breakers.
Okay, yeah, so we want to test the autopilot. I'll just go ahead and turn it on, heading mode. We'll go to the left, make sure the servos activate and go to the left. We'll go to the right, make sure the servos activate and go to the right. And then we're in pitch mode for our vertical, so we can do nose down, and then nose up, and then override it, and turn it off.
What's this GA scoreboard?
So we'll press the go around button. It's on the left side of the throttle there.
Yeah.
And then we'll see it on the scoreboard. For the takeoff, I like heading and go around.
Okay.
Because go around in lateral will just give you what you're at. So you could be going like this and it's gonna let you go like this. Whereas if you're in heading mode and you're bugged on runway heading, the flight director is gonna tell you to hold your runway heading.
I see. I like that.
How do we get our instrument clearance here?
With the what's it called? The FS? No, that's flight service. You would contact Lexington clearance, and you can't pick them up, or you can call them on the phone if that doesn't work.
Yeah, we've got an RCO here at Georgetown, which is out half the time.
Yeah.
So how would we know if the RCO is serviceable or not?
You would listen to it?
No, we'll do a brake check here as well.
All right. Brakes. Check your brakes.
I'll take controls.
Controls.
I like to test them independently because most airplanes do have separate master cylinders for each brake, so you could lose one before the other. All right, your flight controls?
Controls.
Your flight controls.
Georgetown, Scott County Regional Airport. Automated weather observation 1520 Zulu. Weather, wind, calm, visibility, missing. Clear below 12,000. Temperature -2 Celsius. Dew point -7. Altimeter 3020.
So if we lose our engine on the runway, we feel a loss of power. We'll just pull the power back, apply brakes, cut the fuel off, cut the master off, turn the mags off, and exit the airplane. If we lose our engine below 700 feet on climb out, we'll land in the field left or right 30 degrees, follow the same scenario, power back, fuel off, master off, mags off. If we lose our engine anywhere between 700 feet and above, we'll make a complete 180 and land on runway 3.
If it's the best option, it might not still be the best option.
Okay.
There are probably better, more safe options. You know, we're in a pretty rural area. There's a lot of fields over there. I'd probably rather take a safer option of the field than try and make that turn back.
Okay.
in addition to the abort plan, I like to add sterile cockpit procedures. So we're going to have a sterile cockpit under 1,500 feet AGL, which is 2,500 feet MSL today. We'll have a three-way positive exchange flight controls. Your flight controls, my flight controls, your flight controls. Not really going to do simulated emergencies today. In an actual emergency, I'll be PIC, and then we'll work together to run checklists and radios.
Cool.
Power lever is idle, feet on the brakes. I'll do the ECU test. So we're going to see the engine run up. We'll get a feathering of the prop. That's going to come back down. It's going to test ECU-B. The engine's going to run up again. We'll get a feathering of the prop. It's going to come back down.
That's pretty cool.
I'll take my finger off the button once we have that there. Then we're going to test both ECUs. So the computer automatically chooses whichever ECU has the least amount of time. So we felt the shudder when we went over to B. That means we're on ECU A. It switched to B momentarily. That's why there was a shudder.
Switch on traffic. Down star 314 Kilo Yankee taking 2-1 to the east. Switch down. I got eyes on him.
Okay, one thing about these DA40NGs is that if you advance the throttle too quickly, you will get a slight overspeed in the RPM.
Okay.
So give it like 3-4 seconds, yeah?
Okay.
And then if you do get a slight overspeed, pull the power back slightly, and then reintroduce the power slowly.
Okay. Alright, runway looks clear. Clear on base final.
Runway, markings, heading indicator, and mag compass are all in alignment.
Takeoff's at 100%?
Yep.
Okay. Airspeed is alive. Crossing from the right.
Rotation 67.
Yep.
And then 72 initially with flaps.
Okay.
72 feels a little slow to me. I try and go more towards 75, but
yeah,
the book says
thinking.
72. Just a little bit more right rudder there.
I'll make a crosswind turn.
Well, we would do it if we were IFI right now, but since it's VFR, we'll make our turn at 700.
Okay.
500 feet, we'll lower the nose slightly, retract the flaps.
Fuel pump stays on, light stays on?
Yeah, for now.
Alright.
We'll clean up the airplane first, and then we'll pull the power back to 92. Pitch for 88. It's going to be a little nose down from here. Alright, good. Clear left and right.
Yeah, cool, that's alright. Push on traffic, 314 Kilo Yankee, left crosswind, 21, push down.
One thing that's really important in an instrument is that your flight director is always telling you what you want it to tell you.
Okay. I don't have a whole lot of practice with the flight director.
Okay. So now I've got the flight director programmed for our crosswind, which is 120.
Okay.
So if you just follow the flight director, it'll tell you where you want to go. You are the yellow, flight director's the magenta.
Push on traffic, 314 Kilo Yankee, extend the pattern to the east, push on. Alright, lights off. Fuel pumps off. Go to our checklist. Flaps are off. Climb power is set to 792. I'll put it back up to 92, I guess. 200 to go. Fuel pumps off, landing lights off. 10% open.
Yeah, so I'll take the flight controls.
Alright, your flight controls.
My flight controls. And you just, I'm a private pilot. You just teach me how to hold straight and level.
Okay, perfect. So
Maybe I should put the foggles on, huh?
alright, so now we're going to work on straight and level. Like we said on the ground, straight and level is one of the most valuable things in instrument flying. So the first thing that we want to do is make sure that we are still on our altitude here of 3,000. Oh! Yep. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and stay on a heading and maintain that 120 heading. Now we do have a little bit of a crosswind here. We'll change it to 31 since it seems like that's where the plane wants to be. We're going to stay at 31.
Why do you think the plane wants to be there?
I don't know. I would assume just the air density is very thin.
Well, the plane keeps wanting to climb, right?
Yeah, so you want to put in either pull a little bit of power, or you could use your trim, which is your electric trim up here on the stick, or your trim down there at your right hand. Okay.
Yeah, so when a student is trending in the wrong direction, there's always a reason, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes when it's an altitude problem, it's related to
Trim. Okay. And you always want to go trim first before you go RPMs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, you configure and then set.
Okay.
Because the trim's going to change.
Yeah, what is that called?
The control performance method?
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, it's really nice of you to be gracious and give me that 100 feet, but we don't want to do that because that sets up bad habits for students. Because if they're like, oh, I've got 100 feet, I'll just change the altitude I want to be at.
Okay.
And that is actually a form of resignation, a slight form of resignation.
See,
Because they give up.
Yep, I agree.
How often should I be looking at each of the instruments?
Well, you want to be looking at your instruments 100% of the time in IMC.
Okay.
See, you're turning a little bit of left here, so
Oh, okay.
I'm going to turn a little bit right down the heading. You're doing a good job of keeping your altitude here. Up too much.
Oh, what do you mean too much?
So you don't want to make major corrections here. If you see that you're only off by 10, 15 degrees, overcorrecting can be, you'll just start porpoising, oscillating back and forth on your altitude and your heading. So now if we're on a 030 heading and we want to go on 120, then yes, we can make a little bit more of a drastic correction, but over 5 degrees is going to be a little bit too much.
Okay. Is there, so if I do have to make a big turn, how much bank should I use?
If you have to make a big turn, I like to stay at 20 degrees.
Where are you located at that?
If we are really far off by that 90 degree mark, we can do a time turn or a standard rate turn, which would be 30 degrees. So we'll be looking at that, that long poke up there on our turn indicator.
Okay. Do you know how to tell a standard rate turn on the G1000? Because we don't have a turn coordinator, right?
Tell me. It has a little pink guided line, doesn't it?
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
And so this is something I like to demonstrate. I'm going to turn to the south.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you, this is something I like to do with students.
I'll shut up.
Yeah, I see it. I'm going to turn to the south. I'm going to show you where that pink bar is, and I want you to look at what the bank angle is.
Okay.
And I'm going to use my feet, too.
Good idea. Got it. I wondered how that calculated.
So it's about 15 to 17 degrees of bank.
Okay.
30 degrees is a good way to get spatial disorientation.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay. So in between those other two. Okay. Now, do you like to use numbers here, or do you just like to say?
I do like to use numbers. Everybody
agree.
needs a starting point.
I agree.
And then, as they advance in their training, as they advance in their training, or even further, we all eventually kind of get just a feel for it. But we need a baseline. We need to give them very clear numbers, clear and concise numbers, so they know where to start. Okay.
So we're on this 180 heading. We're going to turn to the left. So as we turn to the left, what we want to do is, we know that the lift is going to be a little bit weird, right? And we're also going to pick up a little bit of airspeed there. So don't worry too much about the airspeed. So keep an eye on your altitude, keep an eye on your standard rate turn here. So give me a standard rate turn to the left. You're going to be in between your 15 and your 17 degree mark there. You'll see a little pink line just kind of guide you that way. Good back pressure in the turn. All right, that's a little too much. So ease the turn out just a little bit.
Okay.
Ease the turn out just a little bit.
Yeah, good.
About right there's where we want to be. All right, so now we can see that we're just about 20 degrees away. Oh, still too steep. And roll out. Very nice. So see, we lost a little bit of altitude there. And instrument flying, altitude is very important.
Here's a question.
Okay.
I'm going to take these off. Why do you think I lost altitude in that turn?
Because you didn't put any back pressure in.
Okay. What do you think maybe as a new instrument student I was doing?
Focusing too much on your heading?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So emphasize the cross-checking and the turn,
Exactly.
not just, okay.
Exactly. Whenever you give an instruction, like a turn or a climb or a descent, that's when that fixation is most likely to happen. And that's when you really want to encourage the cross-check.
Okay.
And be willing to let them go too far.
Okay.
They need to scale themselves a little bit. Depending on the student.
So like, let them go too far to where they lose like 200 feet, and then once the turn's completed, they're like, alright, so why is there altitude there?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Also, you know, on a very first lesson, we're not going to hold them to ACS,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Plus or minus 100 when it's your first time really under the foggles maneuvering is a pretty steep standard. So
Okay.
really plus or minus 250
Okay.
is pretty good
Okay.
for a first lesson. Because what you're wanting to do is exactly like you said, let them have those mistakes and then go, oh man, I kind of screwed that up a little bit. And then they're gonna know, like, okay, I really do need a cross check.
Okay. Let's do another standard left turn to the north here.
Okay.
Alright, so we're at 090. Let's go ahead, we'll clear right, clear left, up and down. So go ahead and initiate that turn. Sure that you're cross-checking, right? So you don't want to turn too much. There's that 15 to 17. Perfect.
Good, and you can also emphasize, you know, when we get to this point, we might need to bring the ailerons neutral to prevent overbanking. On the G1000, you see that pink line?
Yeah.
Our trend lines, and if I'm going to pull up here. So if we pull up, we're going to see one go up here, and we're going to see one come down here.
Okay.
Eventually, once the computer gets it.
Got it.
That trend in the G1000 is where you'll be in 6 seconds.
Okay.
Same thing with the standard rate turn.
Okay.
Where will you be in 6 seconds, which is 18 degrees over to either side, right?
Okay.
6 times 3.
Perfect.
And I would probably also do a longer turn, so that they could, like,
Okay.
although at like 180 degrees,
Okay.
for students to really get the feel and really practice the cross-check. You know,
Okay.
just give them more time in
More
that
time
profile.
Got it. Okay.
Now, when I go for my check ride, Cooper, when I go for my instrument check ride, are there like standards? Like, how close do I need to be to my heading?
Yeah, so you want to be, once we get to that point, we want to be within 10 degrees of our heading.
Okay.
That 10 degrees really will make you an okay pilot. We want to be within that 3 degrees really. That'll make us a professional pilot, which is really where we want to be whenever we're flying instruments.
When we're up here just doing basic instrument maneuvers,
There's
not a whole lot of trouble they can get you in. Yeah. So, you know, your comfort level will increase as you continue teaching. Yep.
What else? So let the mistakes go just a little bit more.
Yep.
What else?
Oftentimes, we feel like in order to give them a value, we need to be talking the whole time.
That's not the case.
Yeah, especially early on in instrument flying, the more we talk at them, the more we're getting them to their saturation point,
Yeah.
and we might be hurting the learning process because they can't take all the information in. So one of the things that I loved that you did there is you would brief us through the maneuver and then talk me through it. So I wasn't trying to do it while also listening to you talk about what and how to do it, you know?
Yeah.
So that was really good there too.
They'll
put in rudder,
everything.
and then they'll stop putting in rudder because their feet get tired. They'll focus on the heading indicator when you tell them to turn to a heading, and then their altitude will go crazy and their pitch is going to go crazy. And that's the purpose of getting them out here.
Yeah.
Right? So that they can make those mistakes. They can practice their scan. One of the things I like to tell early instrument students is it's going to take a while. We do a full hour and a half ground lesson on the instruments and what they tell us. I tell them it's going to take a while to look at an instrument and interpret, okay, my airspeed is increasing. Am I pitch up or pitch down?
Okay.
Oh, I'm pitched down. I need to correct, right?
Okay.
And so I tell them, you know, early on, you're going to need to take quite a good beat on each instrument to read it and interpret it and make corrections. But by the time we're near check ride, you want it to be like CPR, right? You can tell by the way I use my walk, I'm a wall swing, right? I want to log an approach. Talk me through an approach.
All right. Let's do it.
All right.
See if anything changed.
13 Zulu weather wind 240 at 4 visibility 10 clear below 12,000 temperature -1 Celsius dew point -7 altimeter 3019er.
So we're going to do the RNAV 21 since we're using runway 21.
Okay, this is the RNAV Zulu 21 into Georgetown. It is a loss approach. We have GPS on our HSI here, final approach course of 209, and we've got close to that in here, 212. Runway landing lane 5500, touchdown zone and airport elevation 949. None of the notes apply to us. We've already listened to the AWAS on 119.975. We would be on with Lexington approach, but with VFR we're on with Unicom. It is pilot controlled lights on 123.0. Good. Good. Okay, so we're headed to Ure. MSA in this sector is 3,000 when we're within
30 nautical miles.
Yeah, but within 10 nautical miles, it's 3,000, and we're 6.3 to Ure. Once we cross Ure, we're going to turn left to 299, hold 3,000. We don't have to do the procedure turn because it's published here. Then we'll cross Aubuge. And I like to intercept glide slope farther back and higher so we don't have to step down again. That's a technique thing that you get some right-of-way on as an instructor. So once we cross the Aubuge, we're going to turn on to our final approach course of 209. We'll intercept glide slope and follow that down to our LPV minimums at 1148 and 3/4.
733 Hotel. What does that 3/4 mean? Taxing to
statute miles of visibility.
Charlie Alpha.
So if we can see 3/4 of the way down the runway. If LPV is not enunciated or glide slope does not become active, then we'll go down to our LNAV minimums. We'll step down to 2,500 past Aubuge, then 1580. Once we cross Cudic, we can go down to our LNAV minimums of 1360. We have a VDP 1.2 nautical miles to the runway, so we can continue the visual portion of our descent until we're within 1.2 to the runway. And then our missed approach point will be runway, the runway, 21.
Perfect.
If we don't meet the requirements of 91.175, we'll execute the missed approach, which is climb ahead to 3,000, direct output on track 301 to SOCOC, then track 049 to Genus and hold. But today is VFR, so we would just re-enter the pattern.
Perfect.
So our minimums are, what was it, 1148?
1148. So how do we set our minimums
Right
after
here.
we've already activated the approach?
I'm ready.
Airplane.
High flight controls.
All right. So as we shoot this approach, you briefed it very well. That was a very good brief. Yeah,
I've been practicing.
I can tell you've been practicing. That's exactly right. You said everything well. Let's see here. A final approach course of 209. So the GPS will turn to that. And what it does is basically just like how we're going to your way. We want to keep that thing centered as much as possible. That pink diamond will basically be, tell us we're going straight. We're going to be a little bit crabbed because we probably will have a little bit of crosswind, but it won't be too much. Yep, that's exactly right. So that's why you see us going straight here and not straight up at that 350.
Do you know what the purple diamond means? The magenta diamond?
Yeah, is it the wind correction?
That's our ground track.
Ground track.
So this is our heading, magnetic heading. And then our ground track is our heading plus the wind. While we're actually moving across the ground. We should do our approach checklist too.
You definitely should. I'll read this through this for you. You can just focus on flying this beautiful approach here. We did verify range on the ground. Our fuel is balanced, I believe. Yes, looking down there. We are not in approach mode because we're not shooting it with autopilot, or we're just VFR. And if you want to, especially shooting a approach in VFR conditions, calling out where you are is very important. I'll do that for you today. But whenever you go practice, it's very important to know that, you're on a VFR. You're not on an instrument flight plane. ATC is not telling you where to go. You're communicating with other pilots along, and some of these pilots don't necessarily know where Epoxy is or where UGA is or whatever.
So what do we say?
So we can just say that we are inbound from the northeast. Our distances will be shown. Nope. Will be shown right here.
Oh yeah.
So we're.
And we can also do nearest for our distance
That's
to
a
the
good one.
airport.
Yeah. All right. So do you like the heading book there, or would you like to put it on our final approach course? That way you kind of know exactly where you want
I like it here for my wind correction.
Okay. Perfect. We'll go ahead and check that. Our altitude is set for 3,000, which is where we're going to be. Check. We'll go ahead and turn our landing light on. Our fuel boost is off for now. We'll turn that on as we get closer. Our brakes are off. Check. Ooh, that'd be bad, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that'd be really bad.
I've never even thought about that.
Bad.
It can happen, though, because the cabin heat's right here next to it,
Yep, very easy.
Fuel fuel transfer, I guess, is in normal. No flaps we don't need just yet. Alright, check. Now we'll go back to our engine, our map page here.
You're exactly right about where you are, and also you want to teach your students to self-brief, okay? How far are you from the next fix?
Okay.
And then you get the 5 T's in there, right? When we get to the next fix, are you going to twist, time, throttle, turn, talk? What are you doing?
Okay.
Because sometimes they might say, ATC might get busy, and then they say, report a bouge inbound.
Okay.
And then once you pass a bouge, you need to say, Lexington approach, 304 Kilo Yankee, a bouge inbound, because that's when they're going to transfer you off to the CTAF and tell you, hey,
Yep.
you can report IFR cancellations with me in the air or on the ground on the RCO.
Okay. Perfect. All right, so once we cross the bouge, we're going to do almost all 5 of the turn times and twists is here. We're going to turn.
Georgetown, Scott County, stationer 2389 Lima is 8 to the west, inbound for 21, Georgetown, Scott County.
We'll go 10-mile final. Georgetown traffic, down 314 Kilo Yankee. We're going to be on a 10-mile final for 2-1. We'll be looking for you on the inbound. All right, so we turn now. Our final approach course is 209. So that's going to be what we turn to.
Altitude 471 is E-zone inbound.
We're going to say at this state, that was until our next cruise. No, it doesn't even have cruise on there. Epoxy. So we're going to go down to 25 for Columbia, 100 Kilo, 10 south.
I like to intercept glide slope farther back,
Okay.
and higher,
Okay.
just to prevent one additional step down. Because we do have LPV. LPV's enunciated glide slope is active. And so if we did that step down to 2500, that's just another
be staying in the pattern for
configuration change.
Inbound traffic.
That's an additional potential loss of awareness or another time that they could get behind the airplane. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So we can intercept glide slope farther back in front of the final approach fix.
And just follow that down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but now we're on an active leg that touches the final approach fix, and that's when with Garmin programming, we get glide slope. Glide slope is here, LPV is enunciated, so we can descend to those LPV minimums.
Okay. Can you kind of walk me through how you would teach this approach then?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've passed a bouge, and now we're inbound to the final approach fix. We're about 4 miles from that, right? And we've got some wind coming from the right, so I've got a little bit of correction angle to get that course recentered. And then once the course comes back in, then I'll turn left slightly. So we're just going to hold 3,000. Once the glide slope starts coming down, we're going to start slowing down and getting ready to configure.
Okay. What are you going to slow down to?
I'm within flaps range right now, barely. I'm going to slow down. I'm going to pull the power back to about, I could even do about 40 right here, so about a downwind setting right here.
Okay. I like that comparison.
Yeah. And then, it's been a long time since I've flown an approach without a flight director. Glide slope's coming down, so once we get to we're 1 dot below glide slope, that's when I'm going to add the flaps.
Okay.
I'm going to hold altitude until we intercept glide slope, and then I'm going to pull the power back to about 25%, pitch for 90. That should give us that 500 feet a minute descent, which is what we want with the 90 knot ground speed for 3 degrees.
Yeah.
Got a little bit right of course here, so I'm going to make a small correction to the left.
Do you want to keep your trim where it is for cruise, or do you want to adjust that?
I'll adjust it once I get to where I want to be.
Georgetown traffic.
Okay, so there we've got 1 dot. And I'll
Georgetown traffic, down slope 314 Kilo Yankee, 7-mile final 2-1, full stop, Georgetown.
I really want my flight director on, but I'm not going to do it.
No, you can do it. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, flight path vector here,
Yeah.
and then we have the diamonds. Okay, so now we've intercepted glide slope. I'm pitching for 90, and I need to pull the power back a little bit so we can actually get a descent going.
Georgetown traffic 733 Hotel Charlie, right 360 in the left crosswind for 2-1. We're going to let that inbound traffic clear. That's crossing over midfield, Georgetown.
So stationary crossing midfield. A little fast, a little high, so I'm going to pull out the power. I thought 25 may have been too high, but 25 is going to be just about right.
Yeah.
I see that I'm a little bit right, of course, so I'm going to put my ground track just a little bit to the left. I use a little bit of trim here, too. Still a little high, but we're correcting, right? So small corrections like you were talking about earlier. And we're headed right for that guy. Did you see him block?
Yeah, traffic station air 2389 Lima is
A little high
turning
still,
left
so I'm gonna go out the
downwind
power a little
for
bit
21
more.
Georgetown.
Alright, how's our spacing with that guy? We're just now on a 5-mile final.
Yeah. Push on traffic, down start 314 Kilo Yankee, 5-mile final. I think you should be able to get in front of the station there.
Georgetown traffic, 733 Hotel Charlie.
So
We're
now
going to
we're
be
coming
lining
back
up
down.
on that left downwind just behind the station
We've
there.
got our lateral
Georgetown, staying in the
in
pattern.
here. Still a little high, so I'm just gonna correct with a little bit of reduction in power. It's been a really long time since I flown in a pro,
You're
so
doing
that's the
great.
flight director.
So watch that glide slope there.
Yeah, I'm making a small correction to get back
Georgetown
down to
traffic
it.
station air 2389
coming up
Lima
slowly.
is turning left base for 21, full stop, Georgetown.
Georgetown traffic, 6374 Delta, 8 miles southwest from Newsbury, a midfield teardrop to left downwind for runway 21.
Minimums are 1150.
Yeah.
So we're 1,200 feet above minimums here.
Kilo Yankee, say your position.
4-mile final.
4-mile final, straight in, 4 Kilo Yankee.
Continuously a little high here. So I'm gonna bring out the power a little bit more.
We got eyes on your station there.
89 Lima is turning final, full stop, Georgetown.
I think you maybe were over him, so
I
I
got
probably
it.
didn't hear you.
Oh, maybe.
I might tell him again, just so he knows. How's our separation?
Georgetown traffic, 733 Hotel Charlie. We're going to extend our left downwind for 21, let Kilo Yankee in ahead of us. Georgetown.
Alright, 1150 are our minimum, so we've got 700 feet to go. Glide slopes come back down. I've made some efforts to get it there. A little windy here.
Closer to the ground.
Alright, pumps are on, lights are on. Turn the taxi on too.
And we have the diamond traffic at Georgetown. It's inbound in sight, no factor. 733 Hotel Charlie.
Alright, 1150.
Spacing is good. He's already on the ground by the taxi off.
Cool. There's 500 to minimums. If I had autopilot on, this would be where I would kick it off, so I could get a feel for
Where we
the
are.
plane. Yeah.
I agree with that.
Gotta reintroduce a little bit of power here.
Why are you introducing more power?
Because I feel my seek rate coming up, and my glide slope was coming up, and my airspeed was decreasing, so my overall energy state was a little bit lower than I wanted.
Agreed.
There's 200 to minimums. Oh, 300, sorry. 1150. Wow, it's
Comes up
Georgetown
with
traffic station air 89 Lima is clear of the active. Georgetown.
alright, 1150 are minimums. This is 200 feet to minimums.
Georgetown traffic, 733 Hotel Charlie, left base. 21, Georgetown.
Correcting. $100 to minimums.
Roger.
And there's minimums.
Perfect.
Minimums. Minimums.
Very nice.
Flaps. Landing. I forgot to say at the final approach fix we need to turn on pilot controlled lights. A little high.
Look at that. Just use aerodynamic braking.
Yep.
Georgetown traffic, 314 Kilo Yankee, clear F21 to the ramp. Georgetown.
Alright, after landing, pumps are off. Landing, taxi light check, flaps
Up.
POV
Keep us
off,
off,
trim
trim
is
set to
set.
neutral, safe taxi,
Almost
clear
set.
right, left, and center, and start timer.
The only airplane I fly from the left seat is the TBM. I tried to go into reverse.
How was that?
It didn't work in this airplane.
Interesting.
Yeah. Cooper, I think you've got a really great mindset. I think you're going to be a really great instructor.
We did some basic, like really introductory instrument flying, right? So like a first lesson for an instrument student. It's been a while since you've done that. And from my perspective, usually with instructors, that's some of the hardest stuff to teach, is the real fundamental stuff. So what are your big takeaways for today?
My takeaways for today are detail is important, but it is also okay to kind of break the limits. We're not working on the ACS immediately.
The very first lesson, we're not going to hold them to ACS, right?
Okay.
Plus or minus 100 when it's your first time really under the foggles maneuvering is a pretty steep standard. So really plus or minus 250 is pretty good for a first lesson. Because what you're wanting to do is exactly like you said, let them have those mistakes and then go, oh man, I kind of screwed that up a little bit. And then they're gonna know, like, okay, I really do need a cross check. Okay.
We are just working on getting the basic fundamentals. The law of primacy is important, especially in an instrument. Being able to just kind of set a foundation for shooting approaches in actual is very, I think, vital to instrument flying, because you're going to rely on those whenever you have to hit go around, right?
Yeah.
Those climbs, those climbing turns, the descents in actual are all going to go back to your law of primacy. So working on those today was key. I think it is good for any pilot to go back to those, because if you can't fly straight and level, you're not going to be able to shoot an approach.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
So I think keeping a good tab on not just logging approaches in your logbook for your 6 hits. I think you should also include some straight and level, some basic maneuvers, some steep turns in actual under the foggles.
When it comes to instrument conditions, the thing that kills people is unusual attitudes and CFIT, spatial disorientation.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me when I've got a student and we're talking about, you know, how to maintain currency. Nothing in currency has to do with what actually kills people in instrument conditions.
I know. That's exactly right.
I like to encourage a little IPC every 6 months or so, especially if you live somewhere like us where it's hard to maintain currency in the winter.
Yep.
So, you know, in terms of what we did today, there's not a lot of that directly applies to the PTS for when you go take your instrument ride.
Yeah.
How do you feel like what we did today might benefit you for your double I ride?
Building my confidence, I think, is the key in any pilot, is being confident in yourself, being confident in your instruments, trusting your instruments, and really just pounding that in is that, you know, the more you practice it, the better you're going to be. And even if it's the first step practices, you know, it's okay to crawl. You don't have to sprint.
Right.
You're still going to get there no matter what, and you'll get there without pulling a hamstring if you crawl.
Yeah, I think that's a really good perspective. And then additionally, I would say some of the stuff that we did today will help you on your check ride, because it's a lot of, well, maybe we got off our heading, but why did we get off our heading?
Yeah.
Right. So taking those steps back to say you were either fixating or omitting, or maybe you weren't coordinated, or you weren't looking at your attitude indicator enough. So all of those things will aid you as you go on in your career.
The more we talk at them, the more we're getting them to their saturation point, and we might be hurting the learning process because they can't take all the information in.
And you're going to do awesome.
Oh, well,
it was
thank
a
you.
pleasure to fly with you today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you did great.
Gilbert Aviation, everybody. Sign up.